Jords, welcome to the show, man. I really appreciate you stopping by. This is legendary. How have you been?
Legendary. I'm very happy. I'm in a good place right now, and I'm happy to be talking to you. I'm happy to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you doing this. I know you're not a big podcast guy, so super awesome. Just getting into it, I have a ton of questions that I want
hmm
to ask you, but just starting out, you had like a year hiatus outside of like a few tweets every couple months or something like that. What really made you step away, and what brought you back to the space in general and tweeting?
Yeah, I think that there's like a moral answer, and then there's also a kind of, I guess, in financial incentive answer, right? Like, I think
Mhm.
when I logged off at the end of 2024, I had um, been on like a little bit of a streak. Things were good. I had kind of certain figures in mind that I wanted to like kind of quote unquote finish the cycle with, and I was pretty happy with it. Like Magic Eden and Hyperliquid both kind of hit. So financially, I was just like, okay, this is what I wanted to achieve, and at the end of the day, like this whole space is just to improve my life and those around me, and I felt like I kind of got there. And then the other side of it was I really don't like the top of cycles. I think it is a really unappealing it's kind of this paradox of financially it's where you can make and lose the most amount of money. It's where you feel the worst. It's where the worst people get the biggest returns. It's like it's just a really not fun place to be, and I felt it kind of sapping my energy. And I remember with Hyperliquid specifically, it was this kind of issue that I had with like, okay, I really like this token, I don't want to sell it, but I also don't want to hold any tokens. So it was kind of this difficult battle. So yeah, I decided to take a long time off and kind of every now and then would open the laptop, but not really get too involved with it. And it's like everything, you think it's super important, and then you don't look at it for a week, and it's out of sight and out of mind, and you don't miss it. Um, and then I thought that I was maybe not going to get back into holding crypto. Like I had this platform, and I didn't want to just kind of completely lapse that because it was kind of an interesting hobby to me. But I think I kept on coming back of like, you know what, this is an interest of mine. I want to be aware of what's going on in like the forefront of technology and finance and these things. And once I started treating it as more of a hobby, like this was just an interest of mine, then it became a little bit nicer. And then as prices got more and more depressed, they became more and more interesting to me. And then it was kind of this combination of like, you know what, like these prices are fairly interesting to me, and I want to allocate some money. This is the place that I've spent most of my time, and all equities and every other market's at all time high. So that was kind of a combination of things that interested me. And then the big thing that kicked off my, I guess, return to Twitter in a bigger way was I decided to commit to the Substack writing once a week. And I pretty quickly saw the correlation between the growth of the Substack and the activity on Twitter, because obviously there's a part of my audience over there that wants to read my stuff somewhere else. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, this is now a hobby that reinforces a positive habit for the first time in 5, 6 years. It actually is something that reinforces some positivity in my life, that supports a North Star that isn't just money. So it kind of became a few things. And I think naturally I'll get exhausted at some point and log off for a bit. But I think the trend is back.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, nothing better than coming back to crypto as a hobby, right? I feel like for your mental health, you must be peaking versus
Yeah.
potentially when you were trying to constantly make it every single day. Um, I guess the biggest question that I have and everyone's going to have, and we'll just get into it because you're talking about it. First is, did you get the hype airdrop or did you not use hype before TGD?
Uh yeah, I got the hyper drop.
Okay.
I first found Hyperliquid at the start of 2024, and was like pretty big in the HLP vault, which back in the day you could just kind of, even if you didn't trade, you could just park money in kind of their like HLP vault, which was without going like into the technical side, it was a pretty good bet. Like it was kind of a yield mechanism, and it returned quite well on stables and felt pretty comfortable. And that was before the points kind of got flooded. So you could have theoretically parked money in a pretty safe place that returned pretty good returns and got like a good amount of points. But in hindsight, I mean, hindsight is very obvious. I would have made some different moves if I knew it was that much of a lucrative airdrop. But yes, I was a supporter of Hyperliquid earlier in the journey, and then was fortunate enough to get the airdrop.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I think the hype airdrop happened way before you left, like in 2023 or 4. So you were obviously doing other things than just Solana. Even though I know your presence then was heavy Solana, like that's where I found you, and I'm sure a lot of your followers came from. Explain to me your thought process on Hyperliquid in general. And I'll let you talk as long as you want about this, because I want to know like what made you go from Solana maxi to Hyperliquid maxi, and do you have a price target? Is this a long-term thing? Are you swing trading for like 12 months? What is your
Mhm.
thesis on Hyperliquid?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I spoke to someone the other day about this. It's like my approach to being kind of early-ish on Hyperliquid was similar to my approach of being kind of early-ish on Solana, right? Like I was on each side of things, and I was buying NFTs, and I was doing all the things that people were doing on layer one in 2021, and I was losing a lot of money on gas fees, and I thought it was insane. And then I tried Solana, I got the Solid, and I bought some Sol Punks and did these things, and I very quickly realized that hey, this is really interesting. Like this is a much better user experience than for me as a power user have had before, right? And I just kind of was curious enough to look deeper and figure out that this could be something a bit more than people might be thinking it will be. And I think it was a similar thing with Hyperliquid when I was using the Solana dexes because Solana's promise, or like Toli's promise that he keeps on talking about, is Nasdaq at light speed, right? And that hasn't been achieved. Like I used Drift, I used Mango Markets, I used Adrena, I used all of these dexes that came out because I was a curious person and I like to be aware of what the protocols are, and they just weren't that good. Like they were not anywhere close to me just opening up my Kraken app and pressing buy and pressing sell, or any centralized exchange. And the premium for me wasn't worth it to trade or even buy, right? Like I remember I was buying the Vitalik suite at like the bottom of Sol, trying to get limit spot buys in on Mango Markets, and it was an absolute pain in the ass. Like I mean, they went through eventually or whatever, but it was really hard with like volatility and the market. It was terrible. And then I remember using Hyperliquid and just going, oh, this is significantly better than the other options I've used. And I think it's the similar curious mindset of being able to kind of break with your current, I guess, allegiances and just be curious about what else is there. And that was kind of what led me to Hyperliquid. And I think I was maybe a more off Twitter ambassador than an on Twitter ambassador, because I was just kind of, if I saw anyone trading, or any of my friends sent me like a P&L or whatever on somewhere else, I just would be like, oh, what are you doing? Like Hyperliquid is significantly better in every way, and they have an incentives program. Like this is mental. So I think it was that's how I kind of fell into the Hyperliquid scene, but it was not immediately like, oh my God, this is the new thing. It was more just, this is the best place to trade, but it's just the best place to trade. Like there's a lot, like Solana's still my home, and like as a layer one, it's where I'm at. It wasn't just an immediate, like, this is everything, but the vision kind of has started to shift from, like Jeff this year has kind of come after the House of All Finance, which I guess is the more realistic version of Nasdaq at light speed. And I think I see that I see them as more capable of achieving that. And it's the same goal that I liked Solana, or I still enjoy Solana, of course, but I think that team has a better chance of realizing it.
Yeah, I agree. Their product is phenomenal. I've used it a little bit. I'm much later than most people. Granted, I did see it at like 13, and I was like, oh, it's gonna go to 8. Like, why would I buy it in low double digits? It's stupid. And of course,
So
it went to like
stupid,
60.
yeah. I mean, I remember
And
on the Hyperliquid airdrop day. Well, before the Hyperliquid airdrop day, I was, because it launched at $2, right? And my
Yeah.
tweets were all about like $10 minimum. This is like a $10 billion coin, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought I was like dreaming a bit. People were like, "Oh, that's a bit high," and all it did was it hit it too soon, and I was kind of freaking out. Like I didn't dream quite enough. But I think it's very important to be able to buy things back higher if you're wrong the first time. Like that's always treated me well, and I think it was a lesson I learned from the previous cycles. Is like, if I miss Solana at $3 and I buy it at 10, it's still not bad if it goes to 200. And it's so hard when you buying something 300% higher, and because price is always relative to what like it's someone who has just come into Bitcoin now might think that 80K is expensive, but someone who was in 4 months ago is like, oh my god, it's so cheap right now. But price is just price. It's just like so subjective, the view of it.
Yeah, I definitely suffer from it already pumped. Why would I buy
we
it? I mean,
we
that
all
literally is
suffer it.
why
We
I'm.
all suffer. No one. I can never pretend to be perfect at it, but it is. It's important to lean into objective truth rather than subjective truth with trying to pick entries and exits for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I know you're really big into Hyperliquid now. Are you into Solana at all? And if you are, like, what are you doing? Or is it like super dead to you? And um, as someone who uses Solana a lot, it's pretty slow right now. So I'd love to know your opinion on it.
No, I don't think Solana's dead. I think Solana's a great ecosystem. I was a part of kind of building the cultural layer. I think it's probably got one of the best cultural layers when it comes to the artist present, like at least for a while. I do think that the Solana Foundation stopping the what were the regular conferences, not Breakpoint, but they were doing the hacker houses. Yeah, the hacker houses.
Yeah.
I think them stopping them and funding them from the Solana Foundation was a mistake. I think that they basically halved them and wanted the community to take over, which is fine in theory, but most people, especially in bear markets, are only going to find the budget for that kind of thing in and around Breakpoint, which is once a year. But I think Solana operates very well from a like meme coin trading point of view. I really like the Camino team and what they're doing over there. Like I think that's one of the very few places that I would trust my capital. I don't have any money in DeFi, just a note for myself, but it is somewhere that I really like those guys. And in general, I mean, Solana still feels like home to me, but I am naturally a person who goes after maximum opportunity and maximum comfort. And to me, right now, the coin that I'm most comfortable holding in a drawdown would be Hyperliquid, and the coin I think that has probably the best amount of upside is also Hyperliquid. So it's just that's where my money is, and that's where my attention is as well, which naturally kind of goes hand in hand with money. But I don't feel the need to burn bridges and be like, oh yeah, no, Solana to zero. It's just it's not my core holdings right now, and then naturally that equates to other biases that happen. You don't hold a token and then you think whatever. But I still have a lot of love for Solana. I still use it regularly. I think there's going to be a lot of activity in that ecosystem, and I'm certainly not like deleting my Phantom and moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome to hear. My question was, when you first got into Solana, in BOOGLES, I just want to talk about that for a minute. What was that
Mhm.
like? Did you come into the space kind of knowing people from there, or did you stumble into it? Did you like win an auction? Like, how did that happen? And then like, how did that hockey stick your growth, if it did, on Solana? And was it more of a group thing, or did you kind of do your own thing and then join BOOGLES later?
Yeah, so basically I found Solana kind of off the back of I was very kind of active in the ETH ecosystem, but I felt late. And then when the fract mint happened on Solana, and then there was starting to be these things called like Soul Punks and things like that, I just became and Solarians, God, that's back in the day. But yeah, like when that kind of happened, I decided that this was going to be my niche, and I would kind of lend whatever credibility I had to this ecosystem and try and build a bit of a platform for myself, um, which I modestly did. Like people started to come to, if you look back at my tweets from 2020, 2021, these kind of dates, you'd see threads about like sol punks having, asymmetric upside because of the ETH money, like this kind of stuff. And a lot of them, in my defense, were correct. Like there was a lot of money that came over eventually. Like these investments did go much higher and things like that. But it was a risk, because for every me that starts going all in on one ecosystem, there's people who pick, I won't name chains or whatever, but there's other chains that get picked and people go all in on them and they're just dead, right? So you got to be right for it to work. But that was my thesis, and I went very much aligned with Solana. And the Boogle story was basically, I was working like a corporate job and was scrolling on Twitter as you do when the cycle was going crazy, like kind of mid 2021. And I just like happened to pass across the account that had these little like funny looking ghosts. And I was like, wow, this is really sick. So, and nothing was sold yet. Like he didn't really know what he was doing, like the artist. And I messaged the account and I was like, yo, these are sick. How can I get one? And his response was really much like, he kind of had no idea what he was doing. He was like, yeah, look, I don't know what, like, basically, I don't know the fuck to do with these things, but like, I'm glad you like them. And I was working in like sales at the time. And I was like, well, like maybe, and clearly his first language wasn't English as well. So I kind
Mhm.
of said like, hey, what if I help you kind of set this up? What if I help you with the structure? What if I was to help with like the communications and marketing and stuff of it? And he basically was like, cool. I mean, I have no idea what I'm doing, so that sounds great. Um, so we just had like a Discord handshake agreement, and then I guess that's like kind of the co-founding of Boogle. And then we went into the auction. First one was 10. They all sold for like $200-300, and I was like absolutely stoked. I couldn't believe it. And then we sold 5 more in the next auction, and like Big Brain came in and bought a bunch, and the bids went crazy. Well, a few $1,000s. And then I was like, cool, I'm resigning. So I like quit my job and kind of went all in. And out of all the people who quit their job at the end of 2021, I think I can look back and say it was a good call, but I'm sure many had regrets.
I mean, that is legendary Jords lore. I never would have guessed that's how it happened, but that is super awesome. I remember my friend Brody in 2021 was like, oh man, like the bid was like a couple grand and I just out of my price range. I was going to get the next one. And then the next one was like way higher. So yeah, man, that is super cool.
Hmm.
I mean, really, really cool to hear your story about that. Explain to me your writing, why you are writing long form, why you chose Substack, if you wrote before, if you were doing that in sales or in your personal life, if you always liked writing or reading, and like
Hmm.
how you're forming your content on your Twitter and like your presence, if you want to call it like the Jords ecosystem, into long form. And secondly, I absolutely love the tweets that you're tweeting now. No one's doing it on CT like that. Everyone's, posting AI or LARP stuff. And I
Hmm.
truly think that the tweets that you're tweeting now are like S tier, that people from,
Oh,
2020, people from 2020 would be like, oh, like the Kobe Bywall tweet or whatever. Like the stuff you're tweeting about now is
jeez.
actually helpful. And like no one on Twitter, I feel like, or at least CT, like has these skills. A lot of the new people that came in are unaware of the history and like things like that. And I think your tweets are actually helpful. I get DMs all the time asking me, and I'm super small, right? I get questions all the time asking me about like what to do and where to go and all
Mm.
that. And like your tweets are genuinely super helpful. So I want to know like what made you go from like, was it just like becoming semi-retired and wanting to come back, or yeah, the whole process about like why you're tweeting like that now and the long form content style.
Oh man, that's so lovely. Thank you for such lovely words. That's very nice to hear. Got to be like,
Yeah, of course. It's
that's the
true.
kind of feedback that I guess reinforces me to tweet. Like I think I went through this big process of trying to change my North Star in life from like money, 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 and like how do I get ROI on my time and these things, to kind of appreciating that a new North Star is possible for myself. And you kind of rewrite a lot of these things that are like hard coded in your brain of, oh, well, I need to make money. I don't want to waste my time. I'm a entrepreneur, like I'm an investor. Like you want to identify with all these things that are attached with financial gain. And I think now I'm trying to like still stay true to that as an interest. Like it's a hobby of mine. It's an interest. I like outperforming the market and things like that. That's fun for me, but it's not my like core personality trait. And I think if you were to meet me in my hometown, like as someone just at a bar, like like having a, or like in where I live, not even I don't live in my hometown anymore, but what is home to me
Yeah.
now, if you were to meet me at a random place, I think that you would, like, we wouldn't talk about anything that has anything to do with capital markets or anything to do with any like anything about work, to be honest. Like I kind of completely avoid the question. And the Substack for me, like I started it many years ago to talk about some crypto and NFT stuff. And I enjoyed doing it, but I kind of scared myself out of it because I posted, 4 or 5 times and they were really long and like well researched and stuff. And then I kind of got in my own head and I was like, oh, well, I can't really match that. I don't want to spend that long doing the next one. And I just didn't post for ages. Um, and I think tweeting, I felt just like kind of was melting my brain a bit. And I was like, fuck this. Like it's not fun. And I, especially at the top, like if the market's really high and you're talking about like, I don't know, risk awareness or something, like you really don't get a lot of flowers for it. And the long form stuff was just like, okay, I really like to write. I used to journal a lot. I like to read. So I think it goes hand in hand sometimes. Um, and like everything, like when I first found crypto, it was like, okay, I'm not going to figure out what this thing is unless I buy it because then I'll be in and then I'll figure it out. And it's like the same approach I had to NFTs, the same approach I have to everything is like, I just need to actually kind of commit to doing it and then I'll figure it out. So with the writing, I was like, you know what? Like I'm gonna write every week for this year. And at the start, I was like, oh, I'll do once a month. Oh, maybe I'll do once every fortnight. And I was like, no, like fuck it. I got the time. I'll do it once a week, and I'll just do it for a year, and I'll see what happens. And I'm already getting a lot out of it. I can feel my brain becoming more capable at digesting longer topics. I feel it's really positive for my week to have kind of a deadline and this like work goal to hit. It's really nice to like to think about it. A lot of it is kind of like an open journal, right? It's like these things that are personal reflections to me. And while I write about the things that I'm writing about, I'm also provoking my own thought and growing it myself. And it's the other thing is like it's this new thing that I can grow, right? Like there was once a time where I had this love for the Twitter account and like I wanted to grow it and I wanted to like have more people hear my voice, but it was in this niche of the internet. And this is kind of a jords without a ceiling. Like I can just kind of discuss and delve into topics that interest me without needing to be defined by one medium, one industry, one whatever, because like I know if I just wrote about crypto stuff, I would have a lot more momentum. My average like user value would be higher. I could maybe get sponsored by whatever. Um, so I think like inevitably it's this decision of okay, if I just wrote about crypto things, yes, that would be helpful to people, but it would be really boring to me, and I would feel kind of the ceiling is just above my head because I could only write about this one niche interest of mine. And as I said, it's a hobby to me, right? But I have a lot of interests. I like to think of myself as a person with depth, and I have a lot of interests in things that are curious to me and things that I'd like to explore outside of just this trading mindset, greed mentality, these things that are deeply interesting to me, but I don't want to write about them every week. And I don't want to cage myself into doing things I don't want to do just for the money. Like that's the kind of antithesis of what I want to be working towards in my life. So yeah, I decided to expand it and I really find it rewarding. And it's the closest thing I've got to understanding what being a creative and having a creative, like having a creative pursuit supported by loved ones and friends. I never identified as a creative until I kind of realized that, hey, writing is a creative medium. And my friend messaging me saying, hey, I just read it, I really liked it, I shared it with my friend, like this part I really resonated with it, fucking warms my heart, like it actually means something to me. And if a handful of people read these things that it's much more meaningful to me, then it kind of fills my cup up, whereas if I just tweet, and that was like, and it still is one of the biggest differences. It's like I can tweet GM and get, over 1,000 impressions and whatever the fuck, and that takes 2 seconds and zero thought. Or I can spend 5 hours like kind of researching and writing and rewriting and editing and then recording something, and maybe 400 people read it, but I need to understand, and like this has been a really healthy process, that those 400 people are putting away significant time in their day to digest my long form thoughts about things that I care about. And they seem to be moved by that, and it provokes their thoughts. And that is way more beautiful than people just replying GM to a tweet. You know what I mean? So it's this kind of much more meaningful growth. And just overall, I feel like it's a positive thing in my life. And that's the kind of flywheel that I want to work towards.
Yeah, super well said, man. I think that's the goal for a lot of people, especially people that want to, have their audience care about their content. So I think you're doing a great job, and I've been loving it. You mentioned you were like a journaler and a reader. I'm not a big reader, but I want to get into reading. And I saw a few tweets you had about reading books when you were taking your hiatus. Were any of them like any books you'd recommend that really like changed your life about perspective? Doesn't have to be finance related, just anything in your life that you felt like it really made an impact, um, like on anything in your
Yeah,
life.
man, I just think it's like, and so I actually, the next piece I'm writing about is kind of in this topic of being like identifying as like kind of identifying as permanently something when it is a temporary thing. Like I always said that I was a bad reader and I was a slow reader, and that kind of stuck in my head and I never read. And then once I kind of bought my way I bought my way to freedom and had more time in my hands, I began to really love literature. Like I was a later in life enthusiast of reading, and it has really, really had a positive impact on me. Like it's being someone who doesn't read is not a permanent state, and I would 100% encourage you to kind of try and challenge that. And you can start in many different mediums. Like you can start with audiobooks, you can start with things that are easier to read, you can start with a Kindle if that's more familiar. Like there's a lot of ways to start, but it just is really, really good for you. And I actually read this Substack called the A Post-Literate World, I think was a Post-Literate Society, I think is the title of it. And it was this really like interesting summary of basically reading and being literate is extremely core to being able to like properly compile an argument or have a deeper understanding of someone when they say something. You know what I mean? And I think it mentioned like early 19th century France, or 18th 19th century France probably had higher literacy rates than like the US right now, or a lot of different places, right? Like you have people, we're trending rapidly towards a 250 character limit. And if you're able to kind of sit with these deeper thoughts and read wisdom of the smartest people of the literate world, um, that is like an edge that you can capture. You know what I mean? I'm kind of the belief that all the greatest wisdom's already been written. We just kind of like we as writers kind of just translate it to a modern era. So yeah, I mean, fuck, you should definitely read. I think like easy, like well, not necessarily easier books, but books like I know Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl is like super. It's like an easier read in the sense it's a smaller book, but it's super powerful. It's like it's about how we find meaning in the darkest places. Like for finance, like the psychology of money is a modern one where you can get a better understanding of like how money fucks with us, and like small things like these. Like Claire Keegan is another small like kind of intro book that I think there's a quote from that is like, was there really any point in living if we don't help one another? Like these, I love in literature, you can read these massive, you can read like 1,000-page book and maybe a handful of phrases, like for whatever reason, it's the same wisdom you've heard before, but it translates to you in that moment. It resonates for you, and you just go like, "Fuck," like you're like digging for a diamond in the not so rough, right? Um, I recently read like The Remains of the Day, which is another one, and that one is just kind of about this concept of like, can everyone be great, or is some other people are most people better off just aligning with a great person and trying to kind of help with menial tasks so they can be great, and like, is there purpose? Can you find purpose in assisting greatness and not being great? Like, I don't know. I can talk a lot about the book stuff, but it's you should read.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely going to read for sure. Like you said, I'm more of an adult reader. I would consider myself a bad reader. I've read a few
Mhm.
books.
Start
But
with
yeah,
the
not
Man's Search for Meaning or Small Things Like These. Very
okay.
like very Small Things Like These, super light and easy to read. Man's Search for Meaning, super heavy but still easy to read.
Sounds good. I will absolutely read those.
There you go.
Before we get into the tweet questions, because some of them will kind of overlap, um, I want to open the floor for you to talk about any questions that I haven't asked you so far that you really want to talk about, whether it's like a topic or something you want to just say that's outside of your Substack writing, like in video form.
Mhm.
It could be about anything. I just want to hear like something from you from your perspective that I never would have asked you because I didn't, have that planned. And I want you to just have the open floor to talk about that, if
Yeah,
anything.
I don't know. I think I would just talk about like how important, how much more value we need to place on relationships in our life, like in the constant like deflation of relationships and everything from like a social media point of view and how we are so quick to pick up the phone and everything like that. I just think being able to stop for 10 minutes of your day and being able to like help a friend or your family or anything like that is kind of like the most powerful thing in the world. And we, including myself, just constantly forget that. Like, we forget that we can call a friend and say that we miss them and make their day. Like, we just kind of forget that. But if someone calls us and says, "Hey, I miss you," it maybe is like the best thing that happened to us in a week, right? So I just
Mhm.
think we constantly miss the important and special things that we can do for others. And like, it's so often because we have a screen in front of our face. I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
very random one, but top of mind.
No, absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with you.
Can I see your cat, by the way? I love cats.
Yeah, of course. Jack here. He's a tuxedo boy.
Oh, cute.
I
Okay,
mean,
cool.
he's
Yes.
super clingy. I don't know if you have cats. You said you like them, but he acts like a dog in the
Okay.
way
Well,
where he constantly wants attention.
like any good cat should. You deserve it, Jack.
Yeah, he's really great.
Okay.
Okay, talking about the tweet questions, because I actually want to
Mm.
ask a few of them. One of them is pretty interesting, and I definitely didn't have thought of it. Gum asked, why monad, in reference to your BTC's hype Zec monad tweet, and like what your thesis on that coin is.
Yeah, I mean, look, like, I don't want to kind of oversell the strength in how much I care about Monad. It's more just those are the only coins that I kind of would be interested in. And they all have their own thesis, right? Like, for me, I only own Bitcoin and Hype. So I don't, if I owned more than that, if I owned Monad, then I would be kind of, I would hope that I would have a better response to it. But I don't. I have Bitcoin and Hype. But Zec, obviously, I don't think I need to go too far into the potential upsides of that. Like, that's already kind of happened. Um, but Monad, I just think, like, if you look back historically, if you have heavy VC backed L1s with good tech, they pump kind of regardless of if there's any users. Like, you think of Near, you think of Sui, you think of Solana, like, these are the other L1s that just have large upside just inherently because they are priced reasonably, and the potential upside is like, yeah, Nasdaq at light speed or whatever it is. Like, you just have a large ceiling. And I think my one kind of credit to Monad is that they've done a really good job with the kind of CT guerrilla marketing. Like, I really like Tunes and Intern and like the guys over there. I think that they're doing a good job being kind of true to crypto Twitter in that sense. So it's not an investment of mine. I don't have a particular interest in buying it, but I can see it being like new coin on the block, kind of first cycle, launched in a bear market, has higher upside, will get tweeted out by kind of investors who have bigger accounts. Like, I just think it kind of doesn't have a lot of baggage, and it looks similar to what was previously like the Sui or the near trade, which also didn't look very interesting. But it was a good trade because it was like, shiny new token on the block and had reasonable kind of incentives to be pumped. So that's kind of the thesis there. It's not strong enough for me to buy it, but I can see it being an interesting trade.
Yeah. I mean, the thesis is I like that you look at coins just on your own accord. You don't look for trends from other people. And I think that's like one of the biggest things people can take away from this whole conversation about trading. And I know we haven't talked a ton about trading, but
Which is great, by
just
the
your,
way.
yeah, just the way you carry yourself about like, I make my own decisions and I do my own research heavily. I may be wrong, but I feel like that's not the consensus on the majority of CT. They kind of just want to follow other people, and a lot of other people are wrong. And I
Mm,
love that your whole new, and I'm sure you were always like this, but I'm happy you're open about it now. Your whole process is so like awesome to want to be like and follow because it's super true. And I find myself falling into the FOMO trap all the time when I know I shouldn't, and I'm degenning when I'm drunk at midnight on a Saturday. But the
yeah.
truth is, like, I really should be making my own thesis on everything. And I love that your explanations are always so grounded. You don't really seem like the person that would be aping shitters at 2 a.m. Not that you're not. I'm just saying. Uh,
Well, the thing is,
it's
right, like, and sometimes I think sometimes some of the tweets that you're referencing are kind of like an open reminder to myself, right? It's like,
mm,
okay, I'm feeling a bit like this. I'm feeling like I should have bought more, or I should have bought less, or whatever it is, the normal kind of emotions. And I kind of pause and go, okay, well, if I'm feeling like this and I'm quite good at regulating it, I've been around the block a bit, like I've been through this. Um, I can very much imagine others are feeling it more, or a deeper, more intense version of it, much like I would have felt in the 2020s and that kind of like 2020, 2021, that kind of thing. So I like to kind of open up those reflections for myself as a good reminder, but also to people who like the things that I would have loved to read when the things that I would have loved to have read when I was kind of first starting out. So I think it's much more important to be genuine and interesting rather than like, I don't know. There's a lot of people who've grown their accounts just by tweeting things of zero interest, right? Like it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, I think things are gonna go up. I think everything's gonna go up. I bought the bottom. I sold the top. Like it's just not very interesting.
yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. And I think you and a few other people are like that for me now. Even being here for years, it's always nice to have those open reminders. And I think those tweets go a genuine long way. They may not get 100,000 impressions because you didn't like, I don't know, post a ticker, but I
Yeah.
think the value of those is so much more evergreen for the future than people that post GM every day.
Well, thank you.
So
I hope so too.
yeah, of course. And then Zin asked a question. We just talked about books, but I just want to ask it because he's more crypto finance question related. He said top 3 pieces of reading for crypto/finance um, that you
Mm. I
consume.
mean, I think I mentioned the psychology of money before. I think that's a good
Mhm.
one. Um, and then like I'm not really into like I'm much more into the philosophy side of reading, and kind of like the literature side. So I don't really read that much finance stuff. Like, so I would read the psychology of money, and then I would read I don't know, maybe the Man's Search for Meaning. Why not? Like, because I think at the end of the day, a lot of trading stuff isn't like it's so much more about managing your own emotions and understanding kind of your self philosophy and biases and all of these things. I think there's a book called Mistakes Were Made by Not But Not by Me, and it's about cognitive dissonance and how we kind of self justify actions. And I think reading things like that is much more helpful than reading about some economist talking about how cycles are repetitive and these things. Like I don't really place a lot of value in that in my personal experience. So I would focus much more on, I think psychology of money is a good one because I guess it's the intersection of the two things I'm talking about. But then I would read, yeah, things about kind of being more objective and aware of what goes on in your brain and trying to be able to regulate emotions is an extremely important thing for everything, but also for kind of not hitting the panic sell, not hitting the panic buy, like those little things that you can kinda control a little bit better go a long way, so I guess
Yeah,
that's my answer.
absolutely. Um, I just want to say one thing, you know, as a 31-year-old who grew up with not a lot of people who knew about finance and philosophy, and I was surrounded by loving family, but not people that were, let's say, super educated on philosophy. I think I
Mhm,
started this whole podcast, Honestly Bullish, to talk to people that like have different opinions, challenge status quo, don't, you know, just have regular opinions. And I think this interview has been perfectly an example of that. And I'm happy you came on. I appreciate it a lot because people like you and the way that you're thinking now and what you're tweeting about now is truly the value in this space and in life. And, you know, I got married last year, did a lot of things that I feel like 4 years ago or 5 years ago when I joined the space, I couldn't really see myself that far in the future yet. And now being like
mhm.
a new person who is much more mature, married, wants to buy a home, all these things. I think I resonate a lot with people like you, and I'm super excited and happy that you came on, and I appreciate it. Before we wrap it up, where can people find everything that you're doing? I'm going to link it all below the podcast, but like all your stuff, like your Substack link, all that. Like, are you doing anything besides Twitter and Substack, or is that mainly what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I'm a simple man, you know, if you want just crypto stuff with the occasional random thought that comes into my head, then you can get me on Twitter at jords, and then, jords.life is my Substack, and that's entering other areas of my brain, but hopefully are valuable too. But that's it. I don't really participate in any other mediums, and I'm trying to be a little bit more active on the podcast side. I'm not so sure how many I'll do, but it's fun. You know, I like to talk, so it makes sense. I have time. I like to talk. I should be probably using my voice a little bit more. For now, it's just I record the Substack, and that's a fun little experiment and exercise for me. But maybe in the future, I'll start something where I talk a little bit more. I don't know.
That sounds awesome, man. I think the conversation's been great, and I appreciate you so much for coming on. I'm gonna look back at this podcast in 5 years and be like, "That was the one to start." So, I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for your time, George.
Pleasure, man. I appreciate you.